Hi, I'm James, and today we're going to talk about a very underappreciated cut of meat for the grill, and that is a sirloin tip roast. It's a very lean cut of meat that you typically see as a braise or a stew, or sometimes even a kebab. But since it's lean, there's a couple of things that we're going to do to ensure that it stays moist and delicious. The first trick we're going to do is a dry brine. We start out with kosher salt, mix in garlic powder, cracked black pepper, and dried thyme. Sprinkle this all over the roast, and then pat it in, and then seal it tightly in plastic wrap. Refrigerate that for 8 to 24 hours, preferably the 24-hour mark, because what's going to happen is the salt is going to draw in some of the flavor of the herbs and spices into the meat, but it's going to pull a little bit of the moisture out, but then pull it back in again. So you're going to get this constant exchange over the 24-hour period. What then will happen is the roast will then end up being very, very moist and flavorful all the way through. Another trick to keeping that roast moist and delicious is a mop sauce. Now, a mop sauce is typically something you'll see with a barbecue, and this is something I learned when I lived in the South for a couple of years. And it starts out with a thin liquid like wine, beer, or juices like an apple juice or tomato juice. And today we're going to be using red wine that we add some onions, garlic, fresh thyme, whole peppercorns, and whole cloves. We're going to simmer this until it reduces down to about a cup. Some of the classic flavors that go well with beef are red wine, garlic, and thyme. So that's why we're using those ingredients in the mop sauce. As it's boiling and simmering down, it's concentrating those flavors, so then when we brush that onto the meat as it's cooking, it's going to caramelize and form a really nice exterior that is really, really flavorful. Now, we know that the sirloin tip roast is a very lean cut of meat, so we want to cook this at very low temperatures for a very long time. So set your grill up for indirect heat cooking, and if you have the ability to add wood chips, go ahead and add them because it's going to give you a lot of flavor. I like to have my wood chips soaked and add them to the tray. Typically, I'll be using apple or cherry wood. You could use mesquite if you wanted, but it tends to overpower the flavor of the beef and the mop sauce. Adding the wood chips is going to give us another dimension of flavor that is going to complement both the mop sauce and the spice rub. It's going to be very subtle, but it's still going to add a whole lot of flavor. We're going to place the meat on the indirect portion of the grill. We've patted it dry, and now we're going to brush olive oil over the surface. After 20 minutes of cooking, we're going to brush it with mop sauce, and every 20 minutes after that for the entire 1.5 to 2 hours. You're aiming to have your grill about 300 degrees or so. We're aiming for 130 to 135 degrees for medium rare, about 140 for medium well. Once the roast comes up to temperature, we're going to remove it from the grill using meat tongs instead of a fork, and we're going to let it rest on a cutting board for 15 to 30 minutes. Resting allows the juices to redistribute throughout the entire roast, so when you slice into it, it's not going to run out onto your cutting board. I like the sirloin tip roast because it's lean, but it's also very, very flavorful. On the grill, it's going to pick up the flavors of the mop sauce, the wood smoke, and the herb seasoning really, really well. And it's also great for picnics, barbecues, and elegant dinners.